Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the 2023 Chicago Auto Show Facebook Live panel. So thrilled to be doing this again this year. I'm Roz Varon, the traffic anchor at ABC 7 Chicago, and with me to my immediate left is Kevin Keefe, who is the president, the chairman of the Auto Show. Jennifer Moran is the chairman of, no, I got them all mixed up, the president of the Chicago Automobile Trade Association, CATA. Hi there. And Jim O'Brill from Drive Chicago. So we're going to be talking about several different things, but I think the first thing I want to go kind of take a deep dive into, what are the biggest trends people will see at this year's auto show? Anybody?
Well, I can dive into that. So the biggest trend you'll see here is the EVs. So electric vehicles are coming rapid to the market, as we all know, but there's also a lot of misinformation out there. So we're actually sitting in the middle of the Chicago Drives Electric EV Experience and Hub, where we're providing education to people who come out to the show. So they can take a test drive inside these vehicles. A professional product specialist will take them around the track. There's 5 different brands. We have luxury to mainstream, so they can really get a feel for the EVs, but then also understand the complexities that come around the topic as well.
You know, it's interesting because I was talking to some of the people who were waiting in line to test ride in these electric vehicles, and they were saying, you know, I don't know that much about it. I don't know if I'm going to get better fuel economy than with gas. So it's a big learning curve for a lot of people.
It really is, and so that's what the product specialists are here for. They're trained on their vehicles, and they can help break that down for people who come out to the show when they're taking a ride along in the indoor test tracks. But the good thing is they can also take an outdoor test drive as well. So we have 4 manufacturers offering outdoor test drives on city streets. So they can jump in the passenger seat or back seat inside and then actually drive outside on the street to really get a feel for the vehicles.
Do we have electric vehicles as part of that too?
We sure do. We also have hybrid, plug-in hybrids, and then gas-powered vehicles. Because let's be honest, an EV might not be for you, but that's the benefit of coming to an auto show where there's so many different brands and so many different types of vehicles here, because you can experience them all under one roof.
You know, Kevin and I were just talking about how this is just such a good consumer place because people can come and compare, and we in the media are very happy to educate. You know, that's one of the most important things I feel about my job. You know, I get to learn things, and then I get to pass that along to everybody else. So let's talk a little bit about the education of how the show is changing. What from like just the past few years, because we went through the pandemic and it got scaled back, and now it's kind of back full. So who wants to take that?
All right, I'll start. Just to piggyback off the EV thing, education is such a huge piece of this. And people, as Jen said, not only do they want to learn about the cars, but they want to learn about everything else about it. So one of the ways the show's evolved is bringing in partners that kind of support that angle of it. So we've got Powering Chicago that's back for the 2nd year. So if you're going to buy an EV, you want to learn what do you need to do to get your home ready. And so they've got a whole EV learning center right across from where we are, and they've got experts in the field on what your home might need to get ready. They're the licensed electricians. They're the ones that you want installing a charger in your home. And then we've got ComEd joining the show for the first time this year. They can talk to you about how adding that kind of power to your home might affect your electricity bill and how that's going to affect the electric grid in the city and all the neighboring suburbs. And then we brought in Autel, who's another new sponsor this year, who handles kind of the charging, the actual chargers. So if you're going to go visit a public charger, or if you're looking for that actual unit you're going to put in your home, they can talk to you about the difference between level 2 or level 3 and all the different types of chargers that are here. And we're going to have another panel that brings all those experts here later in the week, Roz, and I know you're going to be our host for that panel as well, and they're going to have a lot of great insights. So it's beyond the automotive and just the cars themselves. We've got those extra perks here at the show as well. So Kevin, I know you had some stuff too.
I'll just add one thing to that, and Jen taught me this word. It's called experiential, which is what we learned over the last 2 auto shows, even though they were kind of COVID-constrained auto shows.
I don't think we're hearing your mic.
I don't think we're hearing.
Okay, there we go.
That's right, I got to put it in my mouth. Is the experiential part. Most of us, including me until recently, we haven't been in a battery car yet. They're just not out on the streets as much in Chicagoland as some other parts of the country. So to be able to do that, we've had all those supply chain shortages, so we haven't had those vehicles on dealerships' lots. They're all here. And to be able to experience that is the first big piece, because it's very different when you get in a battery vehicle versus your combustion engine vehicles. It's immediately different. It's exciting, but it's different.
Right, and one of the things I wanted to ask anybody here is that you talk about the supply chain demand issues. Will people be able to buy these cars? I mean, they come here, test drive them. Oh, okay, I'm interested in getting this, or I want to try and get an electric vehicle. How easy or difficult is it going to be to order and buy them?
I'll take a little bit of that at first, but it's patience is one of the first key words that we've experienced over the last couple of years. But it is getting better, and you may not be able to buy one that day, but it is getting better, and probably towards the summer in the third and fourth quarters, you're going to see a lot of easing of inventory, and choices will be back, and the experience of purchasing will be a lot different than it's been over the last couple of years.
How so?
Inventory. That's our lifeblood. It's it's the oxygen that feeds this whole thing, and consumers haven't had the choices, and they may have had to settle for certain things, that whether it's colors or even brands, and because they had one, and we've never experienced that in our careers, this type of inventory situation. So once that eases up, it will really give the consumer some options and choices to make the decisions that best for them.
And I'd add too. So with the pandemic, people were forced to do things differently, right? And so one of the things that dealers did was help the online process when you buy a car. So now when consumers come in, they can visit the dealer, they can test drive, they can ask questions of the dealer, and then when it comes to actually the purchase, a lot of the paperwork and information, right, Kevin, is sent to them online. So when they actually get delivery of the vehicle, they can pick it up, and they're not sitting at the dealer for 5 to 8 hours, which was, I think, one of the biggest complaints that we saw. So with that process, so inventory levels are replenishing. That process, is more streamlined and more convenient for consumers. So, all in all, I think it's turning in a good direction. And, you talk about, the experiential, going back to that point briefly. I'm looking around and I'm seeing vehicles all around here, driving over hills, speeding on test tracks. It is exciting. The show is in motion. And again, that's the whole experience side of this show, and what's so unique is it's not just cars on carpet. You can actually get behind the wheel, take a test drive outside, or ride along in one of our 7 indoor test tracks, which is more than we've actually ever experienced in the history of the Chicago Auto Show.
And I think people are hungry for that. They want to do these types of experiences because we've been pent up for so long. And as everybody is just getting out and about, and this is a great way to experience that. So I don't want to dwell on EVs because I know that is like the hugest, that's all I've been reporting on since I've been here. What other vehicles are popular? What else do people come here to see? And what else, like in that area, are you featuring?
I think a lot of people are coming here to see some of the new concept cars. We have a good amount of concept cars on the show floor this year. Dodge has their Charger Daytona EV. They have the new Airflow here. Toyota brought out a bunch of concepts from the SEMA aftermarket show that are very focused on off-roading, their new Trail Hunter series of trucks. So a lot of really neat vehicles that are a range from not only EVs, but just kind of really fun vehicles that you can't see elsewhere. So that's a huge thing. And then we shouldn't, there is a lot of talk about EVs, but there's a lot of cool traditional vehicles here too. Ford brought out the new 2024 Mustang Dark Horse that's on display here. That's been a real popular one. Chevy's got the new Corvette Z06 on display. That's a hugely popular vehicle. And in our supercar gallery, Roz, I know we're going to spend some time there tomorrow, but that Lamborghini Countach, it's one of 112 cars that's being built this year, and it's here at the show. So there's so much to see here outside of just the EVs, and I think that's why people come to the show. You can get a full spectrum of those different things, and people are interested in all different types of cars.
We talk about this being the biggest consumer show ever, well, at least in North America. But I know it is. But one of the things I found to be very interesting, we're seeing this trend of a lot of manufacturers are putting vehicles with third row seating, the SUVs with third row seating. And that is because consumers demanded it. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the the sweet spot of buying cars. You know, many years ago that was the minivan segment, and there was a ton of minivans. Now that segment really is owned by the crossovers and SUVs. We've been fortunate this year. We had 2 brand new vehicles debut. We had the Toyota Grand Highlander, which adds a bigger third row, which is what families are in need of. The Volkswagen Atlas debuted a refreshed Atlas. So those 2 vehicles are, for the first time, being seen here. World debut for the Toyota Grand Highlander.
I was also going to add the Honda Pilot too. So that was the first time. So even though it didn't debut here, which is exciting that the Grand Highlander did, people can still see it. It's the first time that people can see these vehicles at our show.
And there's a lot of families who come out here, especially on on Monday for President's Day, because kids are off school, so they're going to bring everybody here. And it's a really good opportunity for families to see if they all fit in one of these cars. So, I mean,
And part of the frustration of the last couple of years is that they couldn't go to a dealership lot and do that.
Yeah.
With the hundreds of cars here, that takes, this is the place to learn, to feel, to touch, to taste all of what's going on here. And we know that's going to be really popular here.
are there any other examples of things that consumers wanted? Because I know that when you go to all of these different exhibits and the product specialists will say, hey, if you have comments, tell us what you like, what you don't like, and they really take that to heart.
They really do, and so all of that feedback's reported to their manufacturer. But the other thing that I want to mention is, on our social pages, and you're tuning in right now through ABC7 Live, but visit the Chicago Auto Show on Facebook as well, because we also take all the consumers' feedback. We have a lot of fans commenting, and that actually influences our decisions when we're putting on the auto show, and we really take the time to address every single comment that we receive. So please do that. So Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
We were just talking about that, how you put together this show. Like, you start the day after this one ends, start talking about the next one. And I did notice that there's probably a handful or more of manufacturers who are not here this year. Why is that?
Well, and I'll toss this over to Jim after I touch on it, but, we're hearing from our fans, too, on social media when they're not here. But I can answer that, some of them just have different marketing strategies, and it's not that we don't want them here. We would love them to come. But we are proud because we did, get a couple exhibitors back this year that were missing in previous years. So, it's trending upward, and signs look good that, hopefully that will continue.
Yeah, I'll add, the pandemic hit event industry really hard. And so we've been fortunate to keep the show going for the past couple of years. However, some of these manufacturers shifted their budgets, and as Jen said, their strategies have changed. So we are continuing to be in a rebuilding process. But what I'm telling people, when we're on social media, let those brands know you want to see them at the show. They're the ones making the decision. It's not the Chicago Auto Show choosing not to bring them. We would love to have all the brands that were here in the past back at the show. And as Jen said, we've got more here than were here last year. Honda and Acura are back. Cadillac's here with the new Lyriq. So we're thankful for all those exhibitors that are here. And we hope that with each year we get that kind of shift back to getting some of those that have left to be back at the show.
I will comment one more thing is, the manufacturers, sometimes their feedback will be, well, I can just do all this online. And when you're here and you're experiencing everything that is here, it is nothing what you can do online is what here at McCormick Place.
How has this show evolved and changed? I mean, I've been covering it for like 3 decades, so I've seen it evolve a lot. But I mean, just pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, and we didn't even mention the fact that we've got both halls open now again.
Right, and I can touch on that. So, rewind to February 2020, just before, the pandemic hit. That was probably the most normal, I guess if you can use those words, of the Chicago Auto Show. That summer, we hosted for the first time a special edition Chicago Auto Show, which was an indoor-outdoor hybrid event. And it's important to remember that event helped reopen the city of Chicago. And we hosted a press conference with the mayor as well as the governor to be able to bring conventions and events back to McCormick Place. So that was a big deal still is, but at the time. And, last year we hosted a show that was half the size, but we felt that it was important to continue the tradition in February. For many, that it is a tradition in Chicago. And yeah, we were half the size, but we still held it, and we were very proud of what we accomplished. But Roz, to your point, we are back in full swing. 2-hall show, we reopened the North Hall, we're growing back, we've grown back, and all of the feedback we've received is that the Chicago Auto Show is back, and that's a really, really good feeling.
Talk to me a little bit about this past weekend because I've been covering this for like a week now, but it's really only been open for a couple of days. So what happened over the weekend? Talk a little bit about the crowds. What are we seeing? I mean, are we seeing pre-pandemic crowds almost close? What? Tell me.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, being here every day, it feels like it. I mean, Saturday morning, the crowds, following First Look for Charity, which Kevin, I'll let you jump in on First Look after this, but Saturday morning, the crowds of people, it was all the way down the bridge to the east building of people waiting to get in, and with that both halls being open north and south, they were all mixing in the middle. It was a great visual to see how excited people were, and looking at social media, people have just been so amped and so excited to get back to the show.
And Friday we had our First Look for Charity event, which is always a very special night. And we had a lofty goal of raising $2 million in one night, and we hit $2.5 million, which is
Fabulous.
Was overwhelming. It was very special. And to see roughly about 9,000 or so people attend far exceeded our forecast. We were hoping, but we stayed, paranoid and conservative. And the enthusiasm behind that night was just so special, so overwhelming, and we just hope that carries right through this week. And after the first weekend, we can say the enthusiasm is there.
I'll
wanted
also
to-
jump in. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
On opening weekend, miles per hour. We brought the run back into McCormick Place. So you mentioned we're only at Monday, and all that we've seen over the past few days is just unbelievable. So yesterday morning, we hosted over 500 runners inside McCormick Place before the show even opened to the public for an indoor run. We were even on this test track behind me here. It was a lot of fun, and people just enjoyed being back. And again, that run was hosted the first time in February 2020. So again, I think just people are just excited to be back.
That's only the second time you've done the run?
Only the second time,
I
but
didn't realize that.
we'll bring it back next year.
Oh, yeah. Well, 500, that's a lot of folks. So that's really great to hear. So I want to thank everybody for joining us on this panel. We didn't even get through half the things I wanted to talk about. So I guess we're going to have to come back again tomorrow and do this one more time. But Kevin and Jennifer and Jim, thank you so much for joining us. Come on out to the show.